Well, about a week ago, members of the Boat Building Academy came together here at my shop and we cast a lead ballast keel for Pat Cahill's Psalm Sound 12.5. Now, unfortunately, the live event that I recorded got deleted, so I thought I'd do a little recap of what the weekend entailed and also add some footage that we wouldn't have been able to do from the live event, and that is some of the cleanup and post casting of the keel. Now, there's several questions that arise during the live event, and the first question that came up was, what is a ballast keel and where is it located on the boat? So the Psalm Sound 12.5 is a part of a long lineage of 12.5 sailboats. Started with Nathaniel Herenshoff back in 1914 when he designed the original 12.5. That boat had a full keel on it, and in 1985 Joel White designed a centerboard version of that boat, and it became known as the Haven 12.5. Well, then John Brooks came along and he designed a plywood lapstrake version of the 12.5 that is called the Psalm Sound 12.5. So let's first look at where a ballast keel is. So many of you know that I launched my 12.5 this summer, Skylark. So let's take a look here where the lead ballast keel lies on the boat. Now we can see here on the aft end of it that this line right here is where the lead ballast keel meets the deadwood. And you can see as it moves on forward, and we'll move up to the front there and let you see what that looks like. So this is the line where it meets the keel. You can see here, and it stops right here with the forefoot. Now this hole here is where the pivot for the centerboard is. So that's what a lead ballast keel, where it sits on a boat, and it sits in the same location on a Psalm Sound. These keels weigh about 585 pounds and are of cast lead. So let's take a look inside at the plans of the Psalm Sound and of the Haven, and we can see where there's some differences. So these are the plans for the Haven 12.5, and you can see right here is where that lead ballast keel fits on the boat. Now, it came with explicit drawings here of how to build a ballast keel mold and all of the dimensions and cross sections of the mold. Now, one of the important things about a Haven mold is that it had this curved piece here, and that curved piece is what would fit against the wood keel of the boat. John Brooks came up with a really ingenious idea to make it a little easier, and that is that he created the mold to have, we can see here, that instead of that curved section, that he figured out how to make it perfectly flat. And then by adding a couple of pieces of deadwood in there in order to fill in with that curve. So you can see he too has some very explicit drawings on how that lead keel should go together. Now you can see that you actually cast it with the top of the keel at the bottom of the mold. About a month ago, Pat joined me in my studio and we took an auxiliary air compressor tank that Pat had purchased at Harbor Freight in order to prepare the pot that we're going to melt the lead in. The Boat Building Academy's fall retreat began on Friday afternoon. The first order of business was to set up this tripod. This three-legged gantry is positioned so that the 585-pound casting will be easily lifted. We also set up the melting pot in the fire pit and got ready for the next day. Pat, Robert, Greg, Matt, and I started pouring day with a hearty breakfast. Pat let us know how excited he's going to be to have this part of the boat build behind him. The first order of business was to level the mold. You can see here we're leveling it, and the plumb bob shows us the center of the gantry. We then dug a little bit to level out the land, and we added some sand in order to get it dead level. It was also important to find the spot for the feeding tube, make sure everything was lined up properly. We also added sand around the perimeter of the mold in case there was any leaks. It was also important to vacuum it out and make sure there wasn't any sand left inside of the mold. Pat then charred the inside of the mold, and by doing this, it reduces a lot of the surface moisture so that the casting will be a little cleaner. It was then time to get a fire started. You can see in this image that the kettle has been charged with lead. This is about half the amount that we'll need for the pouring. Lead melted down, Pat continued to add ingots into the pot. Each one of these ingots weighs about 2 to 2.5 pounds. Once all of the lead was in the kettle, it was then just a matter of waiting around until it was fully melted. Once the lead was melted and ready to go, we then heated up the filling tube so that then once the lead flowed through there, it would flow through very easily. Unfortunately, you can't see the filler tube spout, but the lead began to flow. Yay!
How's it look with the nails? Can you see more?
It's a little bit, it's right on it, so just wait a little bit. They'll start shrinking as it cools, and you'll be able to drop them in there. There's that other one.
Oh, here. All right, there wasn't a lot of splashing.
No, it worked really well. I think that we could have gotten the metal just a little hotter before we let it down.
I'm surprised it's still bubbling.
There's a lot of moisture.
Yeah, I guess
in
it'll
the
be
wood.
air coming. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the moisture in the
Air
wood
coming out of the wood.
Yep. Yeah, because it doesn't bubble when it's in the tank. So, this is your 7 pounds.
Okay. Bye. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate the help.
Well, it was another successful pour. We had finished up just before lunch, so the whole process took about 2.5 hours. We, of course, then needed to pose for a "aha, we did it" photograph. That afternoon, the crew went with me out to my lake to help launch a floating dock that I had been working on. That evening, we went to a local pub and pizzeria to celebrate our accomplishments. We had a few laughs, mostly at Pat's expense. On Sunday morning, we got started cleaning it up. First thing we did was get all the sand put away and get the hoist set up to lift the mold. You can see how the 1-ton chain fall on the gantry made short work of lifting the mold up out of the ground. We then placed the mold on Pat's boat trailer. See if you can lift straight up now. There you go. Awesome.
Nice.
Beautiful.
First piece off.
Wow. We moved the trailer with the mold into the studio so we'd have a better chance of unmolding it while we were inside. Once we got the mold off, we started to pound with a square steel rod to get the centerboard mold out of the keel. A hammer drill set on hammering with a flat chisel bit in it made short work of cutting off the flashing. Once Pat got the keel home, he used an engine hoist that he fitted with the chainfall, 1-ton chainfall, in order to lift the keel and get it placed on a dolly. Now all he has to do is a little minor cleanup, some epoxy primer and paint, and ready to install it on the boat. So that's it for the fall retreat. We had a great time together talking about boat building and just sharing a lot of meals together and just generally having a good time. Now, the Academy has about 3 retreats per year, usually one in the fall, one in the spring, and then the third one generally happens around either a boat show or a boat festival. So if any of you have ever been interested in being a part of one of these retreats, all you need to do is become a member of the Boat Building Academy. And there's information in the description below on how you can do that and how you can join. Now, the joining is a one-time fee for life. So if you're thinking like, well, maybe in a year or two when I'm ready to build a boat, I'll get started. The time to start is now, because all of these guys have a lot of information that can help you when you get started building your boat project. So there's also some information in the description on how you can schedule a 30-minute call with me, which is free, where we can talk about your specific boat building goals and what it is that you're interested in doing. So many of the guys are excited about the spring retreat when we can get together again. So right now what I'm doing is, and I actually opened it during the retreat, is this is the kit for the Auk kayak. And you can see it's really pretty complete. The materials look beautiful, so I'm really excited about getting started on those 2 kayak builds. Now in the meantime, as you saw in this video, that the fellows helped me launch my floating dock into the lake. So the next video coming up will be the build of that floating dock. So until then, thanks for watching, and remember, if you're going to make it beautiful.